Hello, everybody. Welcome again to the Checking the Gate podcast. We're trying something a little different this time because I feel there's a lot of thoughts to still go around, and Mason and I only touched on a little bit. So I am continuing the Batman vs. Superman Dawn of Justice podcast with, again, myself and...
This guy
right here, Mr. Paul.
Mr. Paul
Grenier.
Well, you know, it's fitting that you would have an extended podcast given the fact that Batman vs. Superman was a really long movie.
Let's talk about Batman v Superman. Yeah, we talked quite a bit about it before. Share with me what your thoughts on the film are. Did you actually enjoy it?
I did. Yeah.
There you go.
Yeah, thanks for having me on the show, man. All right, see you later.
Thank you for listening to the Checking the Gate podcast. Share, I guess, with the peoples what worked about Batman vs. Superman.
Okay, well, I thought Henry Cavill as Superman was probably the best part of the film. I think that Ben Affleck was a mistake in casting. I don't think he should have been anywhere near the script, let alone... No, I'm just kidding.
Oh, okay. I was just trying to figure... You said it with such conviction. I know. Is that like, oh, okay, this is actually quite a different opinion.
And scene.
Because most people are all about Ben Affleck's Batman.
Yeah, man. When I first heard about Ben Affleck being Batman, I was a little hesitant, but I immediately just went, no, let's give the guy a chance.
Oh yeah, I've always felt that when they cast big parts to people with big parts like Batman to actors, people's knee-jerk reaction are usually pretty bad. Like when people first saw that Daniel Craig was going to play James Bond, they're like, this guy's not a James Bond. Look at him. Like, he doesn't look anything like James Bond. There's no way this guy's going to pull it off. Then he actually pulled it off. He became a defining James Bond for this new generation of James Bond. So
they even recast GoldenEye, the new game.
Really?
As Daniel Craig. It's for Xbox 360, I think.
Huh.
Daniel Craig plays James Bond in the GoldenEye remake that came out like 5 years ago or something.
Well, there you go. So,
but initially, my reaction when getting back to Batfleck, was that knee jerk. Oh no! It only lasted a few seconds though, because at first I was like, but Christian Bale brought such weight to the character, and there's something about Bale's performance that I really really enjoyed, despite what people said. Oh, he sounds like he's got throat cancer.
Yeah.
He was subtle and nuanced as Bruce Wayne and as Batman, and I really really liked what Bale brought, and I still wasn't over Christian Bale, so I think
it hasn't
reaction...
been that long, so...
No,
yeah.
Exactly. I mean, if you look at Spider-Man, Tobey Maguire versus Andrew Garfield, there was years between that. But I feel like they just jumped in, and because there was sort of that little conflict there, I think the loyalist in me was going, no, how dare they replace Bale? It should have been Bale to begin with, because if it wasn't for Bale, you wouldn't have this darker universe, this DC universe that the Man of Steel is now part of.
But one of the things we took note of in the previous section of the podcast was that they weren't building off of the Dark Knight.
Well, no. So, clearly, because
yeah.
The Dark Knight is more of like if Batman were here today and in the real world, as opposed to now we're going to do a comic book superhero movie. No, I totally get that.
Yeah.
But I felt like the darker, grittier superhero genre exists nowadays and is more widely accepted because of Christopher Nolan's Dark Knight series.
It's true. I think a lot of people, they underestimate how much of a game changer Batman Begins and The Dark Knight, how much of a game changer those movies were.
My initial reaction was clearly the knee-jerk reaction.
Yeah.
I've always been a fan of Ben Affleck. Mm-hmm. I've always enjoyed his work. And when I saw him...
Even during the dark days.
Have you seen The Dark Knight Returns?
The
cartoons?
I saw the last quarter of it, I think, at your place, back when you had a party with a bunch of trees people. And I came in late, so you guys have been watching The Dark Knight Returns. And it looked pretty gritty.
It's one of my favorite... I think the first one is my favorite. The second one is, my second favorite Batman film.
I keep hearing that this take on Batman is very similar to that Batman.
Oh yeah, the suit itself is taken right from Frank Miller's comic, which is what The Dark Knight Returns is based off of. The film is based off of that comic. The conflict between Batman and Superman, the fight, is I guess an homage to or the same conflict as the one between...
Okay.
Yeah, did I make sense there? Because I feel like I didn't.
Mostly.
Okay.
Mostly.
But yeah, well, we have to watch it then. In that one, you got your Batman who can't escape who he is. So he exists as Batman even though he's Bruce Wayne because he's older, he's tired, You know, he's just sort of a more weathered version of himself. And Ben Affleck's Batman, he exists more so as Batman than he does Bruce Wayne. But you see little hints of Bruce Wayne, and the contrast it's quite large. When you see the difference between the two characters, he carries himself differently, he walks differently, he talks differently. As Bruce Wayne, he's got a glint in his eye and that little smirk of his. But then when it's time to be Batman, he's Batman, and he doesn't even need to don the cape or the cowl. He's Batman. And that's what I really enjoyed about his performance.
That's always one of the things that I liked, especially of the 90s animated series, which I still think is one of the best portrayals of Batman out there.
Heck yeah. And it was a violent, gritty cartoon.
Yeah.
It would never be on YTV now.
No. It was okay for kids, but it wasn't made for kids, necessarily. No. I always liked the Kevin Conroy's Batman in that. Mm-hmm. The Bruce Wayne voice was put on. And when he was just talking to Alfred, it was the Batman voice. Yeah. Like, that's what I liked, that the Bruce Wayne was fake. The Batman was real. Yeah. And I do feel like, that's kind of the case with this Ben Affleck Batman as well. Yeah. Where because it wasn't that with Christian Bale. The Batman voice and that personality was kind of put on. I mean, it was a part of him, but it was a tool. Yeah. The voice was a tool to help instill fear in the people who do evil deeds, as opposed to being where Bruce Wayne lives. You know, I don't wear hockey pads. I don't wear hockey pads. Where are they? You know, is put on clearly, as opposed to, you know, the Conroy Batman where he exists down here, and then when he needs to put on the mask, which is the Bruce Wayne mask, it's, hey everyone, I'm Bruce Wayne. You know, it's that nice shift that, you know, in my opinion, Ben Affleck really nailed. Mm-hmm. Even though he was more Batman than he was Bruce Wayne. You know, come to think of it, I think aesthetically they're kind of similar too. Like him and that Kevin Conroy Batman from the 90s. Yeah, like you know, the very prominent the chin. The chin, and like Affleck was built. Oh man, in this film, like just built. He was huge. He was a monster. I felt so bad for him too, because Superman can bench press the moon if he wanted to. He doesn't need to work out. He just is. Mm-hmm. Whereas Batman, no matter how many push-ups, no matter how many sit-ups he does, no matter how many tires he drags, no matter how peak physically he is, he'll never be able to budge Superman. So, like, why are you even working out, man? But I get why you are, right? You gotta train, you gotta be at your best, because Superman is still Superman. But still, it's like, it's all for naught, because he can still, you know, stand there and you can crash your 15-ton Batmobile into him and bounce off of him, and he can just tear the armored top off of it and tell you that the Batman is dead. Like, but at the end of the day, it's ultimately through his wit and cunning that he is the victor, because no one's got the mind of Batman. No. Not even Superman. Everyone's hating on Henry Cavill as well. Really? I feel like he does a great job. I think he does too. I think he's present, he's grounded, that goes without saying. The man's a fantastic actor. And also, like, people also forget, like, he's super British. Like, he is super British, and you wouldn't know it from, like, hearing him talk as Superman. Yeah. Like, the whole time, he's really clearly done his homework on the American accent. And I love that he's so present, and he's just pumping out the press for this movie too. Like, he's really putting it all into this. I feel like he's super invested, like, or just as much as anyone else on this project. So okay, let's get to the part that I didn't like about the film. Yeah, please do. I felt Doomsday was contrived. They didn't need him in this film. And basically, like, the Doomsday is like synonymous with the death of Superman. So the moment that they bring in Doomsday, is they're like, oh great, well Superman's dead, and like there's no surprises anymore. Which is funny, because that's not where I was going with this. It was actually kind of a shock, and I was like, oh yeah, that's right, Superman's gonna die. It didn't click until the very end of the film for me personally, even though I'm very familiar with the comics, and I have, you know, the Doomsday movie as well, and I know that, you know, Doomsday is synonymous with the death of Superman, but the movie's called The Dawn of Justice. You can't have a Justice League without Superman. The Justice League is Wonder Woman, Batman, Superman, and the Flash. Yeah, that's another inherent problem, is that you bring in Doomsday, okay, you're going to kill off Superman, but the audience also knows, like, well, you haven't really killed off Superman. Yeah. Because you're just starting off the Justice League. Yeah. So I feel like that was a move that was, like, too soon in where this franchise was going. Like, the second movie, kill him off, they're like, at least
at least have the I think they did it for wow factor. Like you said, they didn't earn it. I mean, here's the thing: most people haven't gotten over the fact that to the general public, Man of Steel wasn't so well received. So people don't really relate to Superman, the character, because he's not as relatable as he is in the comic books. People don't really, they didn't feel the loss of Superman because nobody else in the film did except for Lois Lane.
I think if anything,
if you have a Justice League, the Dawn of Justice, at least build a relationship with the Justice League so that way the death of Superman can have farther reaching ramifications than Lois Lane and the world mourns for Superman.
Because basically all he said at this point was, "Hey, how you doing?" to Wonder Woman. And him and Batman kind of overcame their differences, and that's sort of where their relationship stopped, because then they're like, well, we have to stop Doomsday.
Yeah.
Because this giant creature is going to blow the planet up, because he does that.
Which was, oh my god. I get that there's the new 52 and that whole Mega Flare thing. I'm assuming that Doomsday is doing is the thing that Superman does in the new 52, where he unleashes all of his energy, either at like a focused, quasi-directional or omnidirectional form. He can choose how to release that energy. And then when he does, he basically becomes mortal until he can absorb enough sunlight.
Oh.
So that's I think what Doomsday was doing was he was charging up and then releasing his energy. But because he's Doomsday, he's Uber, and it doesn't stop there. But he didn't need that world-destroying, the world's going to end type of, we need to save the world again. Do you know why Deadpool was such a refreshing movie? Because the stakes were so freaking low.
Yeah,
they were personal. It was about him and basically his vanity at stake. Yeah. What's not to love about that?
It almost makes him like the most relatable kind of superhero,
as opposed to
quote unquote superhero anyway.
Yeah, and then you get Man of Steel. Oh, the entire world's gonna end. Then you get Dawn of Justice. Oh, the entire world's gonna end because of Doomsday, and we lost Superman. They shoehorned so much stuff into it that they didn't have time to build on the relationships that mattered in the film. So no one could relate to any of the characters except for Batman. I mean, who wouldn't be scared of, a godlike creature that has the power to destroy the world several times over?
Yeah, again, I feel like Batman's definitely one of the strong points of the film. Yeah, so you were saying that you felt Doomsday was contrived. Let's expand on that.
Well, it's like, we need something to raise the stakes. We need to pull something out of the air. Oh, here we go. Doomsday. Let's have Lex Jr. create a Doomsday, and then that'll increase the stakes of the conflict here.
I still don't even actually understand how they did Doomsday. I feel like, okay, they had Zod's corpse and they incorporated Lex's DNA, and I don't necessarily understand why that creates Doomsday. So it's one of those things. It's like, you guys clearly thought that this would explain it, but it didn't really.
No, they didn't touch on anything except that Lex is a friggin' psychopath. And okay, one of the things that really didn't work for me. Now I'm getting on the bashing wagon, but this isn't. Like I said, I didn't hate the movie. I enjoyed it. I was entertained. Yeah. I was very entertained, and I'm definitely going to buy it on Blu-ray.
It seems like the kind of movie that you'd want to check it out on Blu-ray because, visually, it's really stunning. But yeah, sorry, continue.
You've got Batman v Superman in The Dark Knight Returns. You've got a great arc there, and they set up through one film the conflict between Batman and Superman, and their conflict came from opposing ideologies. I need to stop you because I don't believe in what you're doing. I need to stop you because I don't believe in what you're doing. Well, you're just creating chaos. Yeah, well, you're an unstoppable wrecking ball. Back and forth until finally the dam breaks and someone has to throw a punch. There's no clear winner at the end of that film because, even though Batman physically wins, Superman could have easily destroyed him.
Yeah, I guess Batman wins because Superman held back.
Yeah.
Yeah. I feel like that was the case with this movie as well.
Oh, yeah. Clearly in this movie.
Yeah, very clearly.
The difference in their strength was astronomically larger than it was in The Dark Knight Returns. In this movie, it was kills Batman or I'll kill your mom. It's like, really? Way to cop out on building the conflict, man. You could have made this hit home so much further. Think of what they're doing in Civil War. You've got, even with just the trailers, you've got two opposing ideologies that each one has ramifications that reach far beyond their little group. You've got ramifications that go into the rest of the entire world of these enhanced people and these normal human beings. You've got enough people on either side that believe in one specific ideology to have that huge conflict, right? Mm-hmm. In this one, they could have made a conflict that didn't come from someone just muscling Superman into fighting Batman. And Batman, he just wouldn't listen.
Yeah, essentially. And that's always something that frustrates me, is like when the audience can overcome the conflict just by like saying, just stop for a second and talk to each other. There should be something more tangible than that.
Yeah.
Like there should be something that...
Well, what's the one thing that we learned from all superheroes? The one thing, especially like the powerful male figure superheroes, like Superman and Batman, who respectively can own any regular person. If anybody walks up to them and goes, I'm going to kill you, I want to hurt you, I'm going to hurt everyone, I'm going to do crime or injustice, they're very reserved and they restrain themselves. Why? Because they have the power. And with great power, as Uncle Ben taught us, comes great responsibility, right?
Yeah.
That's basically what every superhero teaches us, is that you must exercise restraint when you have the power to harm or do great things or whatever it is that you've got the power to do. These two exercise none on each other. You know, Superman was like, I need to talk to you, instead of just grabbing him and going, stop, he has my mother, she's going to kill her, or he's going to kill her. I need to bring your head to him, or we need to figure something out, man. And Batman, a champion listener, doesn't, because he's like, oh, I'm still mad at you because you took down my building and you're a threat to the world, so I have to stop you. You can clearly see that Superman is not a threat to him because he's not punching a hole through his chest. And he's trying to talk, and he's like, no, shoot you with my gun. It felt forced, the conflict. And then he's like, save Martha, which I loved. I loved that part. And then he's like, why did you say that name? I really liked that part. But I just felt like it was really, really forced, whereas they could have used the film to set up the conflict and then have that conflict at the end.
Again, I feel like this film could have been like 3 different movies, and they would have built a really good, solid foundation for the Justice League movie.
Yeah. I think they're going to learn from their mistakes.
I think so, and it feels like Warner Brothers, from what my understanding, like they have like an Aquaman movie and a
Jason
Wonder Woman
Momoa
movie.
can't freaking wait.
Yeah, it looks pretty intense. So I feel like they're going to start being more sensible about building this proper foundation.
Well, you shared that article on Facebook, and I read it. How can Warner Brothers learn from Paramount Studios, from
the Star Trek,
the motion picture, which wasn't a bad movie. It's just a really long movie.
It's the art film of the Star Trek franchise.
Yeah.
It's the mood piece.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Visually a stunning film. You know, I feel like they will, in fact, learn from, I guess, the backlash that they're getting from the audience. Because, like, we're so connected now with social media that how can you not, when you've got teams of people whose job it is to listen to and steer the course for your social media machine, which Warner Brothers is a giant, how can you not listen to that, to what people are saying, and then take that into account, and then create something that will please the audiences, right?
Actually, and this is something that you're touching on that I wanted to get into and then I almost forgot to get into, which is one of the reasons why I want to talk, is that there have been drastic drops in Batman vs. Superman the last few weeks. It had an amazing record-breaking opening weekend, made the bulk of its money there, and then there was like a 70% drop for the next week, and then a similar drop to that this most recent weekend. And I feel like, well, I feel there's a few reasons for that. I mean, I think everyone wanted to see it because they wanted to know how it was going to go, but I feel like it is the kind of movie that you only, especially since there's other things out in the theaters as well, you kind of only really need to see once or twice. So I think with Avengers, that one was huge, and people wanted to see it over and over again.
Mm-hmm. I saw it in theaters a couple of times at least, because I saw it with my inner circle, I suppose. And then you tell your friends, like, oh man, you got to see the Avengers. Here, let's go get tickets and let's go see it together again. Then, you know, there's another ticket sale, right? You're going with your other buddies. Hey, I'm going to go see it again. But that's not happening with this one because no one cares to see it again. Like I said, I'll buy it on Blu-ray and I'm going to enjoy watching it. I watched Man of Steel over and over again on Blu-ray.
Ticket prices, especially since it's 3D and all that stuff, like...
I'd rather just spend the money and get it on Blu-ray and then physically have it and watch it as many times as I want, as opposed to going to the theater. Like, I'll drive to the theater and buy popcorn and then go back to my house and watch the movie.
Right.
I've done it before.
It has been known to happen, folks. Yeah, but also I do feel like, to some degree, there is also this spiraling negativity, and I think that it's kind of a shame that this may have like talked people out of seeing the movie, because I think that it is worth seeing once.
I think so, yeah. It's a movie that you have to see in theaters too. You have to experience something like that in theaters. The sound has to hit you from all sides and feel like it's like kicking you in the stomach. I love that about theaters. Children of Men did that to me.
Theaters have been panicking about Blu-ray and stuff like that. Because I have worked in theaters for a long time. I don't anymore, but I worked from 2005 through 2014. I was on and off in different theaters. And they're always panicking because of home theater systems and internet downloads and piracy and stuff like that. But box office records are still breaking all the time.
Mm-hmm.
And people still want to go to the theater because I think it is an experience that can't be replaced.
No, it can't. To drive that point a little bit, we're going to talk about Children of Men for a second. When I saw that in theaters, that running scene, that one shot.
At the very end?
At the very end, when he's chasing the baby, and there's a tank that rolls in. I could hear every wheel on that tank, every spinning part, every squeak. And then when that tank barrel turned, you could hear it whir, and then when it launched its tank shell, you could hear the clicking and the mechanisms inside the tank barrel. And then it fires, and then it hits the building. Then you can hear every particulate hit the ground, over and over and over again. And the sound was almost shattering, and it rocked you to the core. That's the kind of movie experience I love, and I have that movie on Blu-ray, and I can watch that as loud as I can in my apartment with my home theater system, and I cannot replicate that effect.
Yeah.
I cannot.
That was a once-in-a-lifetime thing.
Yeah, and if it ever comes into theaters again, I'll watch it again in theaters. Of course, because of that experience, right? The point I'm making, though, is that if you're going to see Batman vs. Superman, at least try to see it in theaters once.
Yeah, before it disappears completely, folks. If you haven't watched it, you should.
Every Batmobile scene, you could feel, just every, bullet being, launched off, or the Batwing. Every explosion.
Yeah.
Every
but also, to be fair, another thing is that I feel like no matter what we wanted this film to be, it is what it is now. And as such, if you have any interest in seeing the future Justice League movies or the future DC movies, I think you should see this one just because at the end of the day, it's what we got to lead up to it.
Yeah.
And so, if you want some context, you gotta see it. It's now part of the story. And,
the more people that see the film in theaters, the more they're going to have to put into the next series of films.
I mean, at the end of the day, also...
It's a numbers game.
Yes, but at the same time, Warner Brothers... they've made a profit on the film, and I don't see them panicking financially anytime soon.
No, that's not what I mean. I mean, numbers-wise, they're going to see the numbers... But at least remain steady in some shape or form. So
that's a good point.
They won't be discouraged.
The franchises, the amount of funding they get, if there's a drastic decrease in...
That's kind of where I was going.
Yeah, I think...
It's not so articulate. Okay, Wonder Woman.
Yeah.
I cheered, man. So did everyone else in the theater.
My brother Steve loves the Wonder Woman theme. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think that she was pretty cool. She
tanks that... eye laser, and then she reveals her eyes as she pulls her arms down slightly, and then opens her arms up, and then clashes the two cufflinks together, or whatever they're called. Cuffs.
Yeah,
bracelet things.
Those things.
The godly bracelets of indestructibility. That's not the name, but.
But that's basically what they are.
She smashes them together and then creates a shockwave that, if it were anybody else, would have obliterated them. But instead it pushed Doomsday back and gave him something to think about.
He's like, oh, that was not the reaction I was expecting.
Yeah.
I was expecting her to be vaporized. What do I know? I'm just Doomsday.
Yeah.
I'm just a monster. Roar! Well, sir,
How did you feel about Jesse Eisenberg's Lex Luthor?
I'm not particularly attached to the character. There's very few Superman villains that I even know anything about. Lex Luthor is one of them, so I don't feel particularly betrayed or anything. I feel like he had a thing that he was going for and he went for it, and so he was this weird kind of panicky, manic, devious version of Lex Luthor, and I thought he did okay. Yeah, he wasn't the highlight of the film, but I thought he was okay. But I know that a lot of people have a problem with him, and perhaps there's good reason.
I didn't feel like he was diabolical enough. When I think diabolical, I think Doctor Doom,
Oh, yeah.
Sitting in his chair or his throne.
We haven't seen a good rendition of Doctor Doom yet on screen, I don't know. Any more thoughts on the film?
It wasn't as bad as people say it was.
No.
I think the hate bandwagon is just that. It's a bandwagon. It's cool to hate on things now. How cleverly can I shoot something down? How cleverly can I tear a strip off of somebody? That's the comment section of every video or every any content that's on the web, the more clever you are, the more likes I can get, the cooler I am in the eyes of my internet buddies. So in many ways, I think that's what's going on with Batman v Superman. Is it a perfect movie? No. Is it a train wreck? No. Like you said, it's what we've got.
And this is one of the things that I've always wanted to do with the podcast. This is why the line of questioning is, what did you like about it? What did you not like about it? Is that I feel like being a critic is not inherently tearing something to shreds. To be a really good critic, you have to search for the things you don't like, but also search for the things that you do. Very few films have nothing to offer. There's very few films. Even films like inherently bad films like Plan 9 from Outer Space and The Room and Miami Connection, they're incompetently made, but there's something you can like about them anyway, because sometimes it's just that, they have a lot of heart put into them.
Yeah, man.
And sometimes it's just like they're entertaining, not on the level they intended to be, but they are.
Yeah.
And again, I wouldn't even say this is in that territory. I think that this has legitimate things to offer.
Yeah, that was an extreme.
Yeah,
example.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So my challenge to people who have seen the movie is to actually to look critically. Everyone's acknowledged what doesn't work about this film. I think that it's time to acknowledge also what does work. I hope that this podcast is insightful in that respect as well. Well, thank you for joining me again on
Hey,
the
man,
show.
thanks for having me.
We'll see how well this mixing and matching of hosts and time frames works. Thanks for listening to the Checking the Gate podcast. This is Doug signing off.
This is Paul.
I don't even know if you've ever said that before.
No.
And we are moving on.